corruption, a Republican Party that can't keep, can't promote non-corrupt figures, that they end up with this third-rate non-entity. It upsteps from the Democratic Party, not a anti-corruption reformer who was from the North, right? So he wasn't a Confederate. That helps, given the standards of the time. He was also probably autistic, like you read some of that sort of stuff, which, again, one of us. So then we have his presidential campaign. And he campaigned on the end of Reconstruction. He wanted to remove federal troops from Southern occupation. He ran on civil reform in the Trump administration. He was very serious, most importantly, on slashing federal expenditures and maintaining the sound of one of my favorite parts of the bourbon Democrat tradition. Sam Tilden was probably the most intellectual of that bourbon Democratic tradition. And he knew that he was fighting an uphill battle. And the reform that he wanted will be resisted at every step, but it must be pressed. He was a man who was very committed. So then we get to the election of 1876. One thing that's very, very interesting. One of the developments at the time was the governor of New York. There's still a lot of Republicans fighting there. Tilden wins the New York bid election night. The next thing, also things that three southern states have Louisiana and South Carolina. Now, early in the night, the Republicans in these states, sitting telegrams, and Edward saying lost, started adding all the newspapers. There's a little bit of confusion with Oregon, very special margin, but it seems that election night, everyone was knowing that the head of the party basically brings things off to his room and wants to be left alone. Very this is a headline from Chicago Tribune, and at the time it was pretty much explicit partisan, and here they are weeping the fact that we are now going to be flagged by the Democratic Party thanks to the victory of Sam Tilden. But then things are curious. There's one newspaper in particular, not it, New York Times, comes with an infamous headline: "Election in Dispute." So again, it's interesting how sometimes history repeats itself. So again, what's important to understand here is that the New York Times is operating as explicit between all the Republican parties. You have New York Times editors in constant cooperation against explicitly with the party, and when the New York Times put out a headline saying we don't know what the election results are, Republican officers started getting back. Because again, Republicans control the states, and unless that's ran to control the federal military. So the American military, federal troops, confiscated the ballot box of these southern states. They had the access to press, political, and military power. The New York Times was the right playbook for how to keep the Democrats out. This man, John C. Reed, was charged with a great deal. He was managing editor of the New York Times. And what's interesting is that near the night of the election, the Democratic Party was trying to electoral votes up in the air. And for the Republicans to win, they're going to have to make a perfect sweep. Now, one of the arguments that continue to be used to kind of justify this entire thing is that you did have periods of intimidation that were going on with the black voters in the South, right? The Ku Klux Klan was in operations at this point. Now, it's very interesting that there's been a lot of analysis done on some of those profile cases of there, and the stories really don't hold up. But basically, the entire Republican argument is that, okay, sure, we know the number of votes isn't accurate, but we can't trust those numbers because of the intimidation. The most corrupt state of this is Louisiana. That's largely been a historical constant in America. And they're like, I mean, Louisiana state canvassers were like openly putting up the bid. The corruption, like, $250,000 not get you all the votes you need to decide this race. But so again, this was a crisis of which America had never seen, really, until 2020. So the solution is that they created an election commission. This election commission was going to be equal parts Republican and Democrat legislators along with the Supreme Court. And then things get very interesting once again. So this was an independent Supreme Court justice. So the Democrats, and he was going to be swing votes. The Democrats have a great idea. Well, he wants to be senator. Well, and then he signs the In 2020, when there was concern about the debate, the consideration of electoral commission or treating these sort of concerns seriously was completely off the table. Like that was the January 5th sort of advocacy from like Josh Hawley type crews, but that was not done away with. Right? That was not considered. Again, when people do not feel the whole process is operating, they cannot look back. Much the same way that we saw in Louisiana in 1872. So the removal of federal troops meant that the Democrats was able to take the governorship there. There's also an agreement for economic aid and railroad industry investment, most of which did not come about, but that was within the agreement. It also gave the South the right to racial policies, which ended up manifesting itself in a variety of ways on the line that are still criticized today. But what's curious, though, is that there was one more gift that the Democrats got. In exchange for the support of the Democratic Party going along with the entire thing, Democrats were given one political position. Heading into other responsibilities now. It's decidedly the position of national debt. The reason why is that history, when we understand the ways the state uses history as a weapon, I think one of the best ways that we can take the ideas and the perspectives and the experiences that we had this past week and apply them in the real world is to identify the points of history that we're not told. Because you get maybe half of a high school lecture making some sort of comment on 1876. And in doing so, great men are forgotten. Great traditions are allowed to die. And that's a mistake. And so understanding those periods of time, recognizing the progress of good ideas throughout history, and understanding why they failed politically, perhaps learning from that to take away from later, I think is, again, something that I find very encouraging. And I think we have a long tradition, I think, within people within our orbit of doing just that. So if you're interested in learning more about the Bourbon Democrats and post-Civil War history, these are some books that I would recommend. Throughout the Century covers this election itself, has some great quotes. It was written in 2001, so this was a very popular book among Democrats at the time because, like, oh, this is just like the Gore fiasco. This time, they were kind of rewriting, like, all of the 1876 stuff, not focused on, oh, this is the portrayal of American racial progress, things like that. Here we are, the centennial of the legacy of 1776. You have a World's Fair going on in Philadelphia, and yet here is what America has become just 100 years after. The Transatlantic Persuasion is a great book on this sort of Jacksonian liberal sort of legacy, and its connections between the English edition by Gladstone, and foreign laws, and the political qualifications on the Douglas City critiques of the ramifications. There's great articles here about Jefferson, Tilden, Cleveland, and years later. I forgot to mention, because of this election, the same one that you have been to moved over here.
Moved from Mayfair down.
Right across the street from your favorite tire store?
Yep. Not my favorite. Price that I want. What?
The store over there, the only thing is missing.
The sign is missing because there's not a store in there anymore.
Well, it's like a railing on the sidewalk, both sides. But one of them, it has like the end handle missing.
It's missing. Maybe a car ran into it. Never, on this road, anything's possible. Yeah, somebody could have stolen it.
Yes, it must have.
regular lot.
Why?
I don't like waiting in line.
There will not be waiting in line. There will be nobody there. Walgreens.
Walgreens is now a Dollar Tree.
Ahem.